apart, speaking moistly, speaking moistly. 2 meters apart, speaking moistly, speaking moistly.
Welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me as usual on a Tuesday is Greg. How's it going, sir?
It's fantastic. I'm caffeinated. I'm happy to talk about the dystopian reality we're in with my friend Mark. How are you?
Indeed, yeah, dystopian. I think that's a good descriptor. It does seem like I was talking about it. It seems like 6 months ago that it seems kind of like V for Vendetta era and all of that. But now it seems like we're slipping into the Road territory. There's lots of. Did you see The Road? No.
I didn't. I didn't. No.
Oh.
That's with what's his name?
Denzel.
Vigo, right?
Or was it Vigo?
It's Denzel.
I thought it was Denzel.
That was Mortensen in that one.
I don't know.
Anyway,
The Road, I think.
Know your dystopia. Know your dystopia, folks.
Indeed.
Make sure you know your dystopia.
Indeed, yeah. So last week we were talking about churches burning in Canada, and that hasn't really eased up over the last week. Canada Day came and went, and the ritual shaming of Canadians carried on, and now here we are a week later.
Yeah, it's the hot new summer trend, burning churches. You know, do you want to be with the in group of your friend group? Then go burn a church.
It's a very
but I think the main takeaway is how we have a government who preaches so much about hate and preaches so much about terrorism, and they don't use these words at all. They don't even talk about this much at all when burning churches. And I don't like to use the word systemic, but it's like a consistent thing that's been going on, and it's just deafening silence.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's celebrated on social media. You're saying your in group is celebrating this kind of stuff, and I've seen pictures of people painting churches. These people dressed up in black, and I don't know if they're Antifa or who knows why they're dressing up in black, but they're people dressed in black. They're vandalizing property. They're pulling down statues. Can't do anything about this. Can't do anything about people setting arson. But
it's reminiscent. It's reminiscent of when the railroad was blocked by the Wet'suwet'ens back before COVID, and it disrupted our supply chains in our country. And again, it wasn't really condemned. Maybe it was kind of through words condemned by Trudeau, but nothing was really done to stop this vandalism, this terrorism at all. So it's unfortunately it's indicative of the lack of I was going to say leadership, but it's indicative of this this kind of farcical sort of leadership that we have in our country.
Yeah, well, and it also plays to just people being led around by the media, right? And well, I mean, our next story is kind of an interesting study on media relations. We've got Justin Trudeau and his teddy bear, which is smaller, a lot smaller than Scott Moe's teddy bear. Did nobody tell Moe that
size matters, man? Size matters
in this instance, right? Does it? I don't know. Is this what? Okay, so Scott Moe spent time going with Justin Trudeau to the same gravesite to have virtually the same image taken. Scott Moe brought teddy bear 3 times the size of Justin Trudeau's teddy bear, and their teddy bears are side by side. In the context of the burning churches, in the context of the broken kind of societal contract, with the government ignoring it, police and other entities kind of seeming to stand down, is this what we want our leaders focusing on? And why is Justin Trudeau's teddy bear so much smaller than Scott Moe's?
These are the questions. Why is it so small, Trudeau? That you have a huge jumbo jet, and then you show up with this dinky little teddy bear? You think we're going to be able to let the healing begin with that pitiful little teddy bear? I am not of any Indigenous heritage, and I can't imagine what those people might be feeling or going through right now. But I would be really disgusted and really disappointed with these empty displays of, I don't know. It just seems so like vapid and just like it really does define the era of politics we're in Canada right now. It's so shallow. It's about as cheap and fake and plastic as a teddy bear made in China.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I would be
this is so pathetic and gross. And I really feel bad for anybody who sees this and like gushes and it's like, oh my God, there's a cheap plastic toy that they put on the grave. Problem solved. Wow, what a great guy. Like, are you serious? And with everything that's gone on in the past year, you're going to be satisfied with this little toy being kind of just, okay, like a photo op. Like, give me a break, guys.
See, well, you touched on something as well. Like you said, you don't have any First Nations heritage. I don't either. I'm a first-generation Canadian. My parents emigrated to Canada, right? My grandfather came here, and so like I don't necessarily. I think the political displays are the worst kind of pandering. But I think that it's really interesting that they're like, just objectively as a somebody who didn't participate in anything. I came, my family came here in the 70s and my dad, 60s or 70s. So being told that the whole nation is racist and it's the fault of like these colonizers or whatever. Well, what about people who were immigrants here? Are they bad people too? Like, is everybody just by virtue of being in Canada, are they terrible? And why are these leaders allowed to pull this garbage? Why are we tolerating this nonsense, right? Like, this is a pantomime. This is a joke, right? Oh, don't worry about that burning church. Here's a teddy bear. What? Like, this is insulting, right? Like,
it is. And I think that the chaos of the coof of the pandemic that's been going on for the past year and a half, I feel like that disrupts the hearts and minds of the entire country. And unfortunately, it gives more power to the media and politicians to kind of feed us this absolute nonsense, like this absolute drivel fodder. And because we're so scared out of our minds and terrified of going outside and talking and hugging our loved ones, it's like this is not even as big of a sell to say that, oh, like they're really helping with this. You know what I mean? Like I tell people, I won't swear, but like, people's with all this fear porn that's been broadcast, and I truly believe it's psychological terrorism. I truly feel like what's on the news, not only is it not good for Canadians, but it actually, it really increases their cortisol levels, their stress levels, and it turns their mind, their critical thinking skills, to liquid poop. Liquid pudding, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think well, and that's it. There's a degree that this political grandstanding, like, it plays well to a certain segment of the population, right? There's a group of people out there who look at that and say, that's exactly, like, you hit the right notes there, boom, right? And they'll package it up and they'll sell it, and so there's it's an interesting political calculation in Canada because they only really need to get 35%, 39% is a strong majority, 42%. Wow, right? Harper got 42% or something like that in 2008.
And it's weird because you have like this population of people who really truly care, or they claim to care, and then you might have a conservative person point out, well, this guy like us saying, well, he's just putting a teddy bear on a gravestone, like what? How does that help? And they kind of have this defense of saying, well, it's the symbolism of it, and then quite frankly, actually changing anything is really complicated. Like they kind of have this political illiteracy where when it comes to actually changing something, they just say, well, it's complicated and people are corrupt anyway. Like if you actually press them on it, like their kind of answers are very half-baked in terms of like, well, why haven't they investigated the Indian Act? Well, why haven't they done anything about clean drinking water? It's complicated. So they do this weird thing where they justify these shallow virtue signals and then also justify their own kind of not holding people accountable for actually changing anything meaningful. It's very strange.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other part is they're being fed lines. They're being fed like their talking points. They're being
Mm,
fed the idea
right.
that
They're being they're being
yeah,
coached into
yeah,
what to
yeah.
feel
That's
about it.
that's
Yeah.
the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like anything they hear on the news, and it's hard to inform people of this kind of because it's insidious,
Hmm.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
instructional. People hear it and then they think they're informed, but when they dig into it, and the other part is somebody was saying. We'll beat them with information. And I was like, oh, I don't think that's true. We're
No.
not going to beat them with information. I said, have you ever been caught in a conversation with a car guy who doesn't realize you're not also a car guy? Or even better, a video game conversation, right? Somebody who's really into Pokemon and you're like, oh God, I need this to end, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's the same with politics, right? I don't walk away from the Pokemon conversation going, man, I can't wait to play that Pokemon
Yeah.
game. Like,
Yeah. Sorry,
doesn't work.
folks. You sound like a nerd. You sound like a nerd, and they don't internalize it. They don't listen.
right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
then-
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, they're like
It's
this sounds
unfortunate, but
this sounds complicated and really like something. Oh, I'm not on me.
Mhm.
This sounds complicated and not something like I'd be interested in or something that I could even really start to understand. So stop talking, right? Like, and so you have
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
if you're gonna message, if you're gonna have messaging, like these people have their messaging so on point and coordinated, and they know what they're like at different levels. Like if you look at the CPC or the Liberal Party, the NDP to a lesser extent because they're a smaller party, so each person in the party would have like a standing to speak. But like in the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, the backbenchers speak in their ridings, but it's not national news. The cabinet ministers, shadow ministers speak to their portfolios, but again, it's only in the news if it's an interesting portfolio or you're Pierre Polyev. And then, but like the rest of the political spectrum in Canada doesn't have that kind of structure, and people get into trouble because they start arguing with the press, they start arguing with people, right? And it's like your job is to argue with the other candidates, not the press, not the people. You're trying to win their
Yeah.
vote, right? And if you disagree with them, that's okay. But if you argue with them, they will not vote for you. Anyway.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, the major issue we have in our country is we don't really have news. We have propaganda,
Yes. Well, that's-
and the same stuff that comes out of the mouth of Liberal, Green, Bloc, NDP is the same thing that comes out of CBC, CTV, Global News. Like it's it's like wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah,
What a
yeah.
coincidence.
It's like
And
somebody-
speaking to like the normies or the centrists, it's quite the phenomena where, wow, you have the exact same carbon copy opinion on this as everybody else.
with very little
Like,
variance.
you've very little variance. Yeah. It's, oh man.
Somebody's picked a small segment. I don't think coffee shops should have a vaccine passport. Oh, I guess they should. I've come around and seen the error of my ways.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's get into vaccine passports. How's that? Macron has announced that vaccine passports are coming to France. If you want to go to a football game or to a cinema, then you have to be vaccine passported
Cinema.
or tested. Yes, a cinema or whatever. And in the UK, it's the same. In New South Wales and Australia, New South Wales says this tweet is a prison cell. If we want to leave our residence, even for essential purposes, we must submit to mandatory PCR COVID tests once every week, and we must carry on our person proof of negative result to be allowed freedom of movement throughout our own state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what book was this? Was this 1984? Which book was this? Was this
We're just getting to the good part of the
Fahrenheit.
graphic novel, right? This is the part where everybody gets separated, and the good guys show themselves, right?
man?
You know my favorite,
Yeah,
my favorite emoji.
Yep.
You know my favorite emoji. It's the one that's got
What's
all
your
the teeth.
favorite?
The one that's like.
The smiling one?
Oh, no, not
like
smiling.
the,
It's
the
like-
moderate
it's
face
like-
one. Like
It's like he's like, oh,
yeah,
God, like ask a
Ooh.
question and you're not sure of the answer. You're like, oh no, and it's so
Ooh,
overdone
yeah,
that
that's a
I'm
good
like,
one.
oh yeah, that stuff. I felt like that some days. Like there are days where I feel like that emoji. Like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
this whole thing's
So-
going sideways. Like watching a boat like go over the side of a.
Yeah.
watching a boat and
I
it's
will-
not
I-
going to slow down in time, and you're like, oh man. Or watching a
Yep.
Canadian car
Well,
crash. in
I
the-
saw. Yeah, I saw a TikTok of this woman just being like, I feel like there's some pending doom happening. I feel like we're on the Titanic and blah blah blah, and there's an
Pending
iceberg. And my comment was like, we've already hit the iceberg.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's like some people who are like panicking, they're freaking out, they're like, "Holy shit, we're going!" And everyone else is like, "What are you talking
Yeah.
about? There's nothing wrong. I'm gonna keep drinking and enjoying the music." Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
There are
Like,
some
we've
people.
already hit the iceberg.
There are some people that are on the boats. They've got a second boat they've got in tow, and they're eating chunks of the iceberg that hit us, and they're watching.
Yeah.
You know, like that's gonna go
Yeah.
badly.
Yeah, like the ship is starting to like slant fully one way. Like marbles
Yeah.
are like rolling one direction.
Jack and
I'm
Jack
sure
and
it's
Rose
fine.
are locked up in the bottom part of the thing. And
Yeah.
He's got the.
Yeah, we've watched people drown on lower decks.
Oh no!
I'm
Hey,
sure
hold
it's
on!
fine.
You brought that into
I'm sure it's fine.
reality. Oh,
You know,
it's-
they're still playing music. I don't think. Come on, can't be that bad.
it can't be that. Okay.
Yeah,
Gerald Butts says.
it's
Gerald Butts says increasingly, he's increasingly of the view that this is like secondhand smoke. If you want to be unvaccinated in private, but don't expect access to public spaces where everyone else did their part to end the pandemic. He says, do you want a tiny minority to have freedom to harm themselves and others? Or do you want restaurants and schools to be open and safe? Listen, do you know how much money we spend on like cancer treatments and like liver dialysis and lung cancer, right? For smokers?
Yeah.
How come we're spending all this money? Aren't they smokers? Didn't they make that choice? Gerald?
I was the one insisting, by the way, to bring up this Gerald Butts tweet, and you know, he is very much the perfect reflection of what we're dealing with, what really the enemy is, which is this super polite, super politically correct fascist who is dehumanizing and segregating the population. But you know, it's a good thing. No. You don't expect to have access to public places. He's so polite. He's so professional about it. He's so courteous the way he completely just segregates an entire part of the Canadian population.
Yeah.
It's really scary and terrifying stuff, because that is really the takeaway for me with the vaccine passports. It's not really called, even that tweet you brought up about France, they're not calling it that. They're calling it what do they call it? The new measures against the Delta variant. Oh, we're just being safe.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great thing. It's the new measures. Guys, it's not a vaccine. Hey, you know, it's not a vaccine passport. It's just the new measures against, don't you want to stay safe?
It's all marketing.
And
It's all
yeah,
marketing.
and this is the language that gets people to say, "Oh, this isn't my freedoms being taken away. This isn't like some sort of new system to have like an insane amount of control over my livelihood, my bodily autonomy. It's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the greater good, you guys." Really terrifying. And the big takeaway from like the tweet from Butts that I find hilarious. It's like secondhand smoke. Is that the science? Yeah, there's a lot of science in that statement, right? Like, yeah, it's like secondhand smoke. And by the way, there used to be smoking sections in a restaurant, and it's like, that's not how this is going to work. That's like, oh, you're not vaccinated. It's not gonna, there's not going to be a vaccinated and unvaccinated section. It's like, no, if you're unvaccinated, then get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
You know, like this. And the other thing that's obvious about this is, even if I'm a smoker, you know, I just have to not be smoking when I'm in a restaurant. If I'm like comparing that to the vaccination thing is just a joke, because it's like,
Yeah, well.
no, man, it's a bad comparison. It's not based on science whatsoever. And also, he says, oh, do you want a tiny minority to have the freedom to harm themselves and others? There's only 35% of the population fully vaccinated right now. So that, again, that's another total lie,
Yeah.
total mischaracterization, hyperbolic. And this guy has the audacity a tweet later to say, oh, politics can be so dumb sometimes.
Yeah.
People just saying things that are loud and dumb for the sake of it. And it's like, bro, you're doing that.
Yeah.
This guy, but for those listening, do not stare into the abyss of Jerry Butts. He is there to piss you off and to piss us off and to steal our energy. Don't let him take your energy. Just recognize that his way is like the very much like the worst of the worst in terms of this polite fascism that we're dealing with.
Yeah, but the people like that are in power. That's the problem. Like they are in pulling strings or whatever. Here's an example of that. All sorts of different agencies across Toronto, and indeed, like New South Wales, United Kingdom, a bunch of places like this. The Toronto Board of Trade calls for vaccine passports for non-essential activities. Okay, great, Toronto Board of Trade. How about you butt out of people's medical choices? Seneca says they will make COVID-19 vaccination mandatory for students and teachers for in-person stuff. And I read somebody wrote a tweet that kind of said Seneca goes even further, and that you'll need to have your vaccine passport to access campus at all for any reason. So presumably that means like some way to check that, right? So that's concerning, right? So
Yeah, and we've talked about this for over a year now, where, and we should probably go back to see some of the clips, like play the clip. It's gone from being about a virus, being about health, to being about rules, to being about like whether you're vaccinated or not. And it's like, well, what about this first conversation we were having about health? And I'm not gonna name names when it comes to the early treatment of COVID, because I want us to keep our channel. But it's like, yeah, like it's there's been a lot of skimmed over conversations when it comes to the treatment of this coof, and it's just going right to, well, we need to control everybody with these passports. Nothing to do with health, everything to do with control. It's very obvious now, but it's disappointing that so many people are caught up in the rules. And it's like, remember when it was about health? Remember when it was actually about like the actual nuts and bolts of a virus? And now it's just become the segregation of society and whether or not you're going to be compliant or not. Like there's such a huge difference between these topics, and nobody seems to notice.
yeah, well, that's because of the brainwashing by the media and the
Oh, right.
I mean, like they notice, right? But like
Gotcha.
they don't notice. The thing is, the gaslighting works really well, and people fall for it really easily, and not like easily like haha they're dumb. Like if you get told you have to take a vaccine or you're not going to be allowed to engage in society, and then you decide to take the vaccine, you're not a stupid person, you're just being coerced in the worst kind of way, that in a way that used to be illegal, right? And so like it's a very the people are being browbeaten. You said at the beginning you think it's a psychological operation or a psyop or psychological
terrorism.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that there's something to that, and the goal. I think you're right when you say that we went from talking about our health, which was the permission in the first place to lock people down, and now we're talking about if you don't take this vaccine, you can't participate in society. Those are very different things. So yeah, it's a scary, scary, slippery slope. Very scary, and it seems like history's repeating. All right.
Yep.
Moving into history repeating further. Oh, my mouse is acting up. Oh, it's so frustrating. Anyway, here is Aaron O'Toole, and he's talking about grocery prices. Groceries are becoming unaffordable, he says. Canadians need to be able to put food on the table, and Trudeau's Liberal government is making food more expensive. And yeah, here's part of the calculations, and I confirmed this morning on my show live. Well, not really live. I paused it and then confirmed. But annual food expenditure per household was in 2016 $8,784, and in 2021 $13,907. It's almost 60% increase since 2016. So, is that impacting your day to day? Like, does that impact you? Right, Justin Trudeau ushered in the era of awesomeness. Canada's back.
Yeah, he's real change, real more expensive grocery change. Great stuff. I think it's right there in front of us, obviously. And the question is this: do you want to fight climate change or do you want groceries? Can't have both.
Do you want? Yeah.
No, it's.
Do you think? Okay.
It's go ahead.
Yeah. If we waved a magic wand and tomorrow all carbon taxes were gone except for the HST. And I don't know why I would keep the HST with my magic wand. I just feel like Stockholm syndrome. Like I don't know what Ontario would be without HST, right? Like get rid of the GST. Anyway, regardless, wave a magic wand and all the carbon taxes were gone. would we see a return to 4 pounds of apples to 2.99, or would we just stay stagnant at these prices until we caught up? Or I think we'd see a slow return to like where the market sits. But I don't know. I think that people are realizing that people are willing to spend a lot of money on food. So I don't know.
I mean, willing to spend a lot of money. I think that it's more. We are a docile population, and they've determined how to slowly tweak things until Canada looks unrecognizable. Like for example, 5 years ago, right? Like it's been 5 years, and all these changes have been made. They didn't happen overnight. They happened slowly but surely, and the same thing is happening with these regulations and restrictions of where you can go and where you can't go. And the same thing is happening. Well, like, hey, cheese is just going to cost this much now. Like, you haven't noticed us like increasing the price by 10 cents every 6 weeks, but now here we are. I think, once again, we come back to this main frustration that we've been really confronting over the past year, which is, man, Canadians really are pushovers. We really are kind of these docile folk who are, well, I guess we'll just have to deal with it then.
Well, but they kind of have us over a barrel. Like the reality is, with what happened through the 90s and like with the production of food, and kind of the deregulation of that, the ability for us to import food that looks like it's made in Canada, and kind of the just in time nature of our food logistical delivery system. All of that happened over since, let's say, 1990 to now, but probably not 2000. But I'm going to include the decade before, because the framework for those logistics, the trade deals and things were being built in the 90s, and then in 2000 they implemented it, and now we're seeing the outcome. And the outcome is, like China and Bill Gates, they're all buying up massive amounts of farmland and farm property. We're seeing a 60% increase since 2016 in food prices. This is not, in my opinion, where most people expected a Liberal government to take Canadians. Do Canadians want to spend more? And if we want to spend more, if the answer is if it's for the environment, absolutely yes. I'd love to know what people think we're getting for this. Like what this increased cost is benefiting, how it's benefiting the environment.
It's literally a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and that's it. It's this feeling of doing the right thing. I should make this video. I've been wanting to make it for years. Like the whole Liberal brand is based on that. You're a good person. Like that's everything they say. Every policy item that they pitch is about being a good person. So if you don't support Liberal, guess what? You're not a good person. So it's, everything is built upon that. That's why they never admit to any wrongdoing. They never apologize for anything that they've actually done. It's a house of cards. It's all built upon that feeling of, oh, we're a good person. And so yeah, it's totally twisted. And you're right. We are over a barrel, especially like political rhetoric wise, because when the Conservatives come up with this, Aaron O'Toole tweet of saying, hey, things are getting more expensive. It's like, unfortunately, that might speak to the Conservative base, but it's not really a strong enough rock star take to truly make Trudeau look bad. Not enough people care about simply just kind of money stuff. They're going to care when it really becomes a problem. And sure, more people are probably waking up to that. But I've always said this. I'm kind of a broken record at this point, but I want to see more from these Conservative politicians, or anybody who, even Jagmeet for that matter, where it's actually calling him out on just changing the framework, especially for Conservatives, to just be about money. It's this Trudeau regime has irreparably damaged our economy, destroyed and slaughtered. There's a bloodbath of small businesses across the country. And you're just going to talk about, groceries are getting more expensive. That's...
Well, to be okay, but Trudeau is also shredding parliamentary superiority, right? The Parliament's demanded documents. And not to say that O'Toole should be hitting him harder on that for sure. Like he should be going. Every day he should be holding a press conference, counting the days. And I think they tried this with Harper, and people kind of rolled their eyes at it. But they should have a period of time where they're going to count the days, and at the end, like a countdown or something like that. This is the amount of days that Parliament demanded this. Not even the Conservatives, Parliament demanded this. And at the end of this period of time, blah, right? But it's been memory hold. Nobody's keeping it top of mind at all, right? And so that's the failing of this Conservative Party. It's not that I say Aaron O'Toole's weak and people don't like that. I mean, somebody called me a Trudeau liberal today, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, have you watched my show?
Nice.
But I thought it was funny because, like, I don't like Trudeau. I don't think what he's doing is good. But like, they're able to win elections. A large majority of Canadians vote in favor of that group of people running things, despite the fact that they're clearly signaling that they're right on board with communism, they're right on board with a Marxist revolution, they're right on board with removing Christianity from Canada. Like,
and if you sorry to cut you off, but like if you are somebody who is like deeper into politics, like Mark and myself, realize that there are a lot of things that the Trudeau camp does incredibly well in terms of winning elections. And a lot of Canadians don't realize this. People in the States are more into it, and they treat it like a sport. So they realize what is being done well, what a good campaign looks like, what good propaganda, good rhetoric all looks like, and how that is a huge part of the game and winning. So we could sit around and bicker and complain about, the liberals are being dishonest, and like they're saying all this stuff about climate change and they're not being honest and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they're winning. And what they're doing is they're speaking emotionally to their base, and it's working. So, put aside your kind of like innocence for a second. We're dealing with politics. Embrace the cynicism. It's ugly, but the Conservatives need to do something different that is emotional.
It's terrible. Yeah, their messaging is terrible.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Here's the fundamental base of it. The Liberals can get people out. The left generally can get people out. They can get people out to burn down a railway, and maybe they're paid. But if they're smart enough to pay for people to get out there, then fine. They don't get arrested, do they? Doesn't matter what they do. But if you show up at a conservative event, you do get arrested. I'm not saying that it's right, but the difference is that. And there's a reason that it's done. It's to stop the ability to coalesce a group. It's to stop the ability to grow the group. That's why they do what they do. But the left has the ability to get their groups out. They're seen doing awful things, and still they gain support, right? So is this happening in Canada? Is it real? Are they really gaining support? Are Canadians fine to have grocery bills increased by 60%? I think Trudeau wants out.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes down to their advantage over everybody else, that I think the Conservatives are lacking, is they have this dogmatic framework like a religion. They have this sort of like progressive love is love, save the environment, love everybody equally. And that is everywhere in Netflix specials. It's in, it's all in the academia institutions. It's everywhere. A CRT, like it's permeating every part of our lives. Yeah. So they have that like woke religion to use and motivate people. And it very much is like a religion. And on our side, what do we have? Ben Shapiro? Yeah. Jordan Peterson, like that's not enough, guys. Yeah. And
Peterson's good though.
Peterson.
I don't know people who don't like him, but right. I do. I think he's quite good.
But I agree with you. We need a bigger myth to work upon. We need a bigger like emotional thing, and to kind of bring up QAnon in a weird way. Like QAnon was actually really useful to conservatives in the States because it kind of created a similar sort of dogma that got a lot of people really pumped up and really excited and got them out to the polls, got them out to demonstrations.
But it didn't work.
And it's
they didn't win.
What do you mean it didn't work?
They didn't win. I mean, like didn't win. Like Trump didn't win, right? And yeah, like he may have got a whole bunch of votes, but he didn't win, right? Did he? He's not in the White House right now, is he? I didn't miss something.
Well, you're being facetious or something.
No,
right?
Like well, I mean, like
Sure. He didn't win, but he also got more votes than any sitting president in American history.
And when you add up the $280 million vote counts, that's more voters than are on the American voter roll. Sure, I understand that, I get it, but he didn't win, right? Like Did he?
Yeah, but you can't. I mean, you can't denigrate though the like, you know, we're resisting the leftist establishment, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's like you can't undervalue what was accomplished in the States as something significant in terms of like opposing the establishment, the swamp, if you will. Like that's a lot. That's a lot to resist. That's a big job.
I'm not trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to run. So
Yeah. Okay, we'll wrap this up. Any last words on anything we've just been talking about?
No, I think we pretty much said it. You can find me, Greg Wycliffe, on my YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter and TikTok at GDub. Dub is with 2 D's, DDUB, GDDUB. And thanks again for having me, Mark.
As usual, it's always lovely to see you, sir. And you can find me at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co. That's my scratch pad. That's where I put all my ideas and things. And SpeakingMoistly.co will have our back catalog and the other shows with Jilly. And what else? I think that's about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out. See if it works this time. I don't know. It's going to give us problems. I don't understand why the YouTube... Oh, there it is.
Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.